You're listening to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell in North Carolina, and being in the middle of the theme park off-season for the regional parks, you're in the middle of our off-season interview series where we're talking to people in the industry, out of the industry, fans of the industry, and, you know, just very interesting people we think you guys will enjoy as guests. This week on the show, I am joined by arguably one of our more famous Twitter followers and his lovely wife. Most people probably know the name Aiden English if you're a fan of professional wrestling. But this week on the Coaster101 podcast, we are joined by Matt Rehwoldt and his wife, Shaul Guerrero. Matt and Shaul, how's it going? Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you very much for having us.
So this is, I mean, we're talking into the pandemic here. May, I realize on Twitter that we've gotten a follow on Twitter from, some verified account. And it's like Drama King Matt. And I look and I'm like, that's Aiden English. He's following. It's like, again, it's a big day in Coaster101 fandom when we get a blue check follow. We tweeted at you tweeted us right back, and you mentioned that, Shaul, you got Matt into Disney parks, and he's been hooked ever since.
Yes.
Very much.
I guess, Shaul, I'll start with you. I mean, what's your history with Disney parks and roller coasters? And then, Matt, I'll go to you.
I actually have a funny story because my first roller coaster experience was actually Space Mountain at, of course, our favorite Disney park, Magic Kingdom. But I remember I was in line and it's dark and spooky and I'm like probably like 10 years old here and I'm like crying my eyes out and I'm with my mom and my dad's like, you're gonna go on this. And I'm like, no, please, no. Like I'm freaking out. I hear like the screams in the background and the whoosh of the coaster. Never been on a coaster before. He was like, you have to go on it one time. And if you hate it, I will never, ever, ever make you do it again. And of course, I went on it, was digging my nails into my dad the whole time. And the moment I got off it, he was like, well, what'd you think? I'm like, can we go again? And thus begins my relationship with roller coasters.
I love it. And Matt, what about you?
So what's kind of funny about that story is she kind of gave me the same speech after we went to like Universal together for the first time or something. Because I was off. I was a shy kid, easily spooked and stuff like that. And like the weird thing is, in a weird way, I got into professional wrestling and throwing my own body around. And like as a kid, I did stupid stuff like make videos with my friends throwing ourselves off of this and that, being stupid. Mm-hmm. But roller coasters wig me out. And I think it's something to do with like letting control go. Like if I'm doing it to myself, I'm good. But when I'm just strapped in for the ride, it wigs me out. But she kind of gave me this. She goes, I want to go on this. You're going to come with. And she goes, if you really hate it when we're done, I'll never make you go on it. So she quoted her own dad, basically. I'll never make you do it again. And of course, same thing. I think that was when we did Dueling Dragons Dragon Challenge.
Oh, yeah.
At Universal with your friend. And we got to the end and I was like, okay, that was pretty freaking cool.
I remember I tried to get him on Rip Ride Rocket the first time, and he looked at that drop.
No, it wasn't the drop. It was the vertical rise.
Oh.
Which is just the rise, but still, I was like, why?
I know. You were like, why would anyone do that to themselves?
It just seems stupid. Like, that is just a dumb thing for a human. And now, like, of course, that's also one of my favorite. The first thing you do when you walk into the original Universal Studios park, that's always the first stop. But, yeah. Besides that, that wasn't my first roller coaster experience, though. I had one technically before that. So I grew up in Chicago. Mm-hmm. So our major park in the area is Six Flags, Great America in Gurnee, Illinois.
Yep.
And I'd gone there as a kid, but that was the same thing. My mom would sit there and hold my hand while my brothers went on the roller coasters, and I would wait to go on the water ride or something like that. But our high school did a science experiment class field trip to Six Flags every year, the senior class. It's a physics. So you ride the coaster and you're supposed to like, it's a half-assed assignment, but calculate the velocity. Okay, now go have fun for the rest of the afternoon. And I didn't really do it, but of course, there was sorry, honey, but there was a girl I had a crush on at the time. and she was going on the Batman inverted coaster, which was at the time was still relatively new. And it was like, I didn't want to go, but it was at that, but she's going, like, I got to sit next to her kind of thing. Screw it, I'm going. And I went, and actually I had a lot of fun on that too, but I don't know how I got away from them again. And then she brought me a girl once again. So I guess the crushes and romantic feelings and everything, I guess, have brought me back to roller coasters both times.
That's all it takes, a pretty girl.
I love it. Well, I gotta go back to this ultimatum conversation you had about the roller coaster ride. Shaul, you mentioned you were about 10. Matt, how old were you when this conversation took place?
So when I got there, she got it when she was 10. I got it when I was. When did we first meet? I was 27. 27.
I don't know. Okay. Never.
Oh God, absolutely. Saying it out loud.
Well, I remember we went to Disney. It used to be MGM, but Hollywood Studios, and we were with his parents. I think you hadn't gone on a large roller coaster yet.
No. At this point we already had the Dueling Dragon talk.
Oh, you
and
did.
Then my parents came after that.
I don't think so, because I remember strictly you asking me before we got on the Aerosmith roller coaster. You were very nervous, and you were like, "Does this go upside down?" And I thought I remembered. No, you're fine. It's an indoor coaster. Like, I don't think they can do that. And then
the first thing.
And then it was pretty apparent, like not too far. And I was like, oh shit, my bad. I was like, sorry. After we were done.
Yeah.
So I don't know quite where we were on the timeline, but you were fragile at first. Now you're pretty gutsy.
Yeah, I think so.
You're a seasoned vet now. You're a regular roller coaster enthusiast. I love it. Well, Shaul, I've got a really brief story, and it actually kind of goes back to Universal Orlando, but it's a story my brother and we talk about all the time. And this is probably early 2000s. We were in line for the Hulk. We had gotten in the Universal Express queue, and my brother, and he's 4 years younger than me, so he would have been 10 or 12 years old at that time, something like that. Uh-huh. And he kind of grabs my arm and he goes, "That's Eddie Guerrero over there in line." And yeah, I mean, presumably he was with his family. You might have been there, but he was a real quick interaction. We still, to this day, like anytime we talk about the Hulk or Universal, we talk about, seeing your dad in line, which is a really, again, small world story. You very well could have been there with him, and now 20 or 15 years later we're on a podcast, so it's a very, very creepy.
It was very likely I was there too, just because theme parks were just a huge love of my dad's and whatnot. He loved being immersed in Disney and Universal, and he loved the Hulk roller coaster. And he loved roller coasters in general. I remember it was kind of sad, toward the end of his life, he couldn't go on them very often just because his back was so rattled and stuff. But man, he lived hard, and he loved all coasters and whatnot. Awesome. So happy I get to, share my love of that with Matt now.
That's great. And Matt, you grew up in Chicago. You mentioned your one high school trip to Six Flags Great America to impress a girl. Did you get any other parks in the area? Did you ever make it down to Indiana Beach or anything like that?
So no. So I saw it. You mentioned Indiana Beach never. And this is a cardinal sin as a Midwest kid. I've never been to the Wisconsin Dells.
Ooh. Never
did an indoor water park. Never did a duck ride. Never did any of the track. Our family, that was just for whatever reason. We were one of the few Midwest people who never made that trek. I don't know why, but I have Six Flags was our main one, was there several times. Mm-hmm. And then I did get one trip to Cedar Point.
Okay.
Which was still in my Scaredy Cat days. And I remember my brothers going on Millennium Force and again thinking, you're stupid. And it was also the first time, to kind of tie into wrestling, that was the first time I'd ever seen a wrestler in person. Mm-hmm. And the Stone Cold Steve Austin was there.
At Cedar Point, really?
Yeah. And I don't know I never found out what his deal was, because somebody had heard, my mom or something. I think I was a newer wrestling fan, and she's like, I heard there's a wrestler here. And then I hear it's some Stone Cold guy or something. I was like, oh, hell yeah. And we stalked him out, and eventually we saw him. He was by himself, or maybe he was just doing something, walking out of a gift shop. He had 2 security with him. but he was in it, his tight jean shorts wrapped around his tree trunk legs, and walking and wearing a poncho because it was kind of a rainy day. And yeah, I just caught a glimpse of him, and I don't know if he was with his wife at the time or whatever. I don't know what he was doing, but I caught a quick glimpse of Stone Cold while I was at Cedar Point. So that's my one memory.
Only Stone Cold can make jorts and a poncho look cool.
Yeah, he still looked like a badass.
He probably still will wear the jorts and the poncho to this day. And nobody will question him on it.
Oh, no one would dare.
No. Shaul, what about you? Where did you grow up? I mean, I know you're born in El Paso, Texas, but where did you grow up, and kind of what were your theme park habits as a child? I know obviously you mentioned your dad was a big theme park fan and enjoyed roller coasters.
Oh yeah. Like, I mean, I did spend some time in El Paso, Texas, but I split it mainly between El Paso and Florida. So I was in the mecca of theme parks and whatnot. So, I mean, God, I just remember, I remember a lot of Disney. Like, I have a lot of pictures of Disney and whatnot. And God, I loved it. Dad would pull all kinds of not pranks, but he wouldn't, if Dad was hurting that day, he had no problem, like using his name to help us get in the front of the line or get to go again and whatnot. Like that was always really fun when the attendant knew who he was and was like, do you guys want to go again? And, my dad's always like, yeah. And he wouldn't even have to ask us. It was about him going again. And right. So we were just along for the ride, and Dad truly loved all that. And I think that kind of like floated over to me because I love theme parks. I had to bug this guy to kind of get into theme parks. And then he dropped the bomb on me one day. He was like, I have something really serious to talk to you about. And I'm like, okay, what? And he was like, this is a wild idea. I'm like, dear God, what's happening? And I was like, are we going to break up? What's happening? And he was like, I want to become a Disney pass holder with you. And I was like, wow.
There is no stronger bond in a relationship.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And this is actually, it's a really good segue into kind of the next thing I wanted to talk about. Obviously, both of you spent some time in Florida Championship Wrestling, and which later became WWE NXT. Being in the Central Florida area, were you guys just constantly in the parks a lot when you were not wrestling or training?
I mean, yeah. It grew to a point. I remember when she brought that up, it was like, because we especially after we started dating, we weren't big on going out to bars or clubs a whole lot.
Not going out at all.
We were kind of homebodies,
sure.
Both of us, really.
And we've never dated anyone else in the industry before, so we didn't really have somebody to go with that we were comfortable with. Just because I think going to a theme park, you got to make sure you're your compatible personalities. Yeah,
they got to be on the same level kind of thing like that. If somebody doesn't really want it, they're not really into it, it's off kilter, it drags and all that stuff. But that was my thing. I was like, well, so we're not going out, we're not spending all our money on booze and stuff and clubs and overhead and all that stuff. So I was like, what if we got annual passes? I'm like, what if that was our go-to activity? Mm-hmm. I'm like, because if we do, it's way cheaper to do that than if we just went and bought tickets each time we went, and we live here. And so
the moment we got the annual pass, though, it was over. We were there every off day.
Yeah, I mean, it was at least every week, but usually multiple times a week at that point.
Mm-hmm. And then we got the Universal Pass, and we would flip flop. If I had a bad day, he was like,
"That was the go-to."
Yeah, do you want to ride a roller coaster? And we would literally go pop on a roller coaster and peace out.
Sometimes we would just hit it for one because it was just like I need to. Because we lived 15 minutes from the park. Yeah. Go run in, hit one or two of our favorites, and then out. We'll grab some food on the way home, and that's it.
Yep.
I love it. That's amazing. That's like living in Central North Carolina. My closest park is Carowinds in Charlotte, which is still 2 hours away. So I don't really have that. I can leave my house, be at a park in 15 minutes vibe, but extremely jealous there. But Disney. Universal, did y'all do SeaWorld and Busch Gardens too, or not so much?
So I do have a thing to say about SeaWorld because we tried it. I am one of those, people that seeing whales in pools. I'm not a fan, but we were like, we hear there's some dope coasters, so let's try it. Let's try it. Loved the coasters there. Oh my God, they were fantastic. And like we truly loved the rides at SeaWorld. It was just, I think we just kept getting bummed out walking by and seeing how bad the whales were. So we were like, this was great. The coasters are top notch. But Busch Gardens, huge fan of Busch Gardens. Like that was a big hub for me and my family. And I took Matt there one time, and I think you enjoyed it.
I didn't know. I had fun at Busch Gardens. Well, there was I remember there was something that like wasn't running, and it was. But I will say it is funny. You go and see, and like this kind of applies to like Six Flags too, though. Like when you are used to brands like Disney and Universal. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hopefully this doesn't sound bad to anybody, but like when that was like our main jumping off point, and we're so inundated there.
Yeah.
When you do notice the drop in, just like theming and immersiveness,
the music, and
you realize how much work goes into some of those major parks. When you go to like, let's just call it, I'm not going to call it, oh God, I'm burying myself. But when you go to kind of a more standard theme park, that's pretty much just ride and concessions and blah, blah, blah. It's kind of wild. And I noticed that with like Six Flags and with Busch Gardens a little bit.
No, I get that. And like we're such nerds. Like I like the line queue, like at Disney and Universal, because it's so immersive in the music, and you just feel like you're in a different place all the time. And I think going back to Busch Gardens as an adult, I was like, okay. Like it was wonderful, but like, and certain rides were really good about it.
To quote fellow, and we may talk about this, a fellow WWE alum and huge theme park fan, Zack Ryder, who he said, if I'm on a coaster, if I'm on a ride and I can see the parking lot, I'm out.
Yes.
that was it. He goes, I want to be in it. He goes, it's a different world. He goes, if I see somebody's outhouse or something, he goes, I'm out. It's done.
That's funny. Yeah, I interviewed Zach, who is, I guess, now going by his real name, Matt Cardona. I interviewed him around the same time you followed us on Twitter. So he just, again, huge Disney fan, huge Universal fan. I can picture him saying that like verbatim. And he might have actually said that on somebody's podcast.
Did. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
But again, another really good segue there. I mean, obviously you guys were in the wrestling business. You're around a lot of other people in the Orlando area. Were there any professional wrestlers who became like theme park buddies of yours, or who would go to amusement parks with you?
You know what? Like me and Alexa Bliss are still friends, and we would always talk like, let's go to Disney together. Let's do it. And like, but I think, and I, of course, would love to go with Bliss, like, any day. I think it was just, I mean, my main theme park buddy is, like, I'm living with him. And so, like, we were just always, like, that was our happy place. It still is. That's our date night. That's our whatever. We're bored. And so I think Matt was my main theme park buddy. But, I mean, I know I want to go with, Bliss. I want to go with, I know Brandy and Cody Rhodes are huge theme park nerds as well. Mm-hmm. There's so many cool people to go to theme parks with. You had an opportunity one time to go to Tokyo Disney with Austin Creed of New Day, and you didn't go.
Oh, I didn't. That's right. I was like, wait, did I? Like, that's right. They were gonna go, but I turned it down. Because I promised I would never go to a Disney park without her,
especially Tokyo Disney, because that's huge bucket list item.
That's one of the big ones.
That sounds like it would have been a heck of a story, though. Knowing how his persona is kind of on screen, I imagine it's fairly similar off screen, but
I mean, as an addendum to that, though, I didn't go to Disney because of my solemn vow. But the night before, we did drive go-karts through the streets of Tokyo, Mario, and dressed up as Mario characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which has since been outlawed, I believe. Because I asked him about it. He goes, they got shut down. That was not supposed to be allowed.
That was not safe.
But I've got some fond memories and great photos and videos of that. That was a pretty awesome time.
Although I did offer, like, I did tell you could go. I don't want anyone to think I'm a dictator.
No. It was
habits, but you stayed true.
I did.
True.
It's very nice of you to do that. So is it? I mean, where have the two of you been as far as Disney parks? Is it predominantly Orlando? Have you ventured out to Disneyland at all, or is it predominantly Orlando?
So I mean, living in Orlando, that was
Yes.
obviously the hub. But we were fortunate enough to there was one loop of mine when we had did our TV taping in Vegas, and then I had a few days off afterwards. So I was like, why don't you come out to Vegas? We'll make a night of it there, and then the next day we'll drive to Anaheim, and we'll do 2 days. We'll do boom.
Yep.
Disney and California Adventure, and it was awesome. Actually, that was
really great.
For even though it was a smaller park, and we stayed on site at the Grand Californian, which was a beautiful hotel, and just be like versus Disney World, to be able to just walk out your hotel, downtown Disney, park, everything's walkable, no trams, no buses, no. That was really, really nice. So
that, and they also had the Nightmare Before Christmas.
Haunted Mansion.
Haunted Mansion. Which
Her favorite.
That's my all-time favorite ride. But it was a really great trip. But we've also made our way to Disney Paris as well.
We did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you think about Disney Paris?
It was and I think the other one thing that did affect it, the reason we went is because we got great plane ticket deals because it was in February.
Yes, so we went in the off-season.
It was cold. It was pretty cold, so it was kind of a gross day, but it was kind of highs and lows. There were several things shut down for refurbishment,
including Phantom Manor.
The
whole reason why I wanted to go.
Their version of Big Thunder was shut down. Yeah. Stuff like that, but like their
castle was beautiful because they had the dragon underneath and Beauty Castle, and that was lit. I was like, why do we not have this in the States? That was awesome.
Their Space Mountain, which is they do the Hyperspace Mountain, which is like a full on like strap-in coaster. It's much more modern.
We went on that several times.
That's fantastic. Very cool. Their Pirates too, I think was very, very good. If I remember, the Pirates of the Caribbean.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that one was really cool. Yeah. But I wish more would have been open, and maybe it would have been a little bit warmer.
Yeah, I felt like there was maybe it was because in the off season it felt like a little slow, a little less magical than what we're used to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's freaking Disney Paris. Like you can't it was still freaking awesome. So enjoyed it a lot.
And so when the world opens back up, how quickly are you guys going to try to get to Shanghai or Tokyo to
We actually had plane tickets to go.
We had plane tickets. We had hotel booked. We had, I don't know if I might have even bought our Tokyo Disney tickets. We bought our tickets.
Yep.
It was in May. It was supposed to be happening in May. We planned it in like February, March, right before things were getting, and we're like, and then it started happening. And we're like, well, wait, by May it'll be fine, right?
Or even then, like in March, we kind of we're like, this Corona thing sounds a little serious, and it was like, we'll be okay, it'll be fine. And it was like, and then it kept getting more and more like, oh man, this is not good. Yeah. And then we eventually canceled, obviously.
So that is their next big like bucket list trip is Tokyo.
Okay,
Tokyo.
I'm gonna manifest it happening for you, and to use your own words, maybe by May it'll be fine.
Yeah,
the kiss of death.
Yeah.
So I didn't include this on a rundown, but while I'm talking to a couple of seasoned Disney experts and veterans here, let's talk some of your favorites of the four parks, four Orlando parks. Which is your favorite?
That's so difficult. Mm-hmm. Because, there's a mood, for each park.
And a strength.
No. Oh, God. All right. For me, I'm going to have to go with, oh, no. Sorry.
You gonna be okay?
You know what? I'm going to have to go with Islands of Adventure.
No, for Disney.
Oh, for Disney. Oh, sorry.
God, woman.
I know. Well, then Magic Kingdom, because of Haunted Mansion. That is my absolute favorite ride. We have art in our house of Haunted Mansion.
True.
It's everything. So.
Okay. Matt, same with you?
Now I'm going to reflect what you were saying originally. Like it's the same. It is. It's like the mood. There's different things at each one that just like shine out to me. And one of the ones that we fell in love with, I'm not going to say surprisingly because it makes sense, but Magic Kingdom is huge, but Epcot as an adult with the World Showcase and the festivals and all the food and the drink and everything was so much fun to go to.
It's quite literally lit because you get to get it. So
but again, food and wine was like one of our favorite thing every single year.
Love it so much.
So much. So like, well, if you're gonna say Magic Kingdom, I said as a just to be different counter. And to kind of counter, Epcot, and I love World Showcase in general, and then Test Track is cool, and that's one of those parks that I'm looking forward to. I know they have a lot of plans. As it needs updating.
It does.
And
some zhuzhing.
And I know there's plans in the work for it, so like I'll be keeping a very close eye on that one.
But let's be real, that golf ball ride, I always call it the golf ball ride. It's not the golf ball
Spaceship
ride.
Earth.
Spaceship Earth. I love that ride so much.
That's one of my favorite classics too.
I love it.
It's so good.
It never changes.
Yeah.
I'm with you. And Shaul, you mentioned your favorite attraction, Haunted Mansion. Matt, favorite attraction at Disney.
So I think because we did make a quick trip this fall, we were actually able to go to Disney and Universal. Mm-hmm. For a while it was Splash Mountain. It was just one because it's weird. It's a weird thing. Like I'm a sucker. Like I always think like business in my head. I'm like, all right, if I'm going to wait 45 minutes in this line, I'm like, I like it when I'm on the ride for more than 90 seconds.
Yes.
So I do appreciate that. Like Splash Mountain's like is a full, you get a whole story, and you probably the ride itself is like 5-6 minutes. I think like it's a full like
longer ride.
You know what I mean? You go down a couple little ones, and then you're seeing all the characters, and up the final big one.
I hate log rides though, so I would always go on it with you, but
But I will say, after going back this time, man, Space Mountain is. I mean, it's a brilliant ride. Yes. I mean, it's been standing there for 40 years or whatever it is. Yeah. Take a very, very simple roller. Like you light that thing up, and that's such a basic coaster. It's just like zoom a couple tiny drops.
You don't go that fast. Really.
And you don't go that fast, but boom, put it in the dark, and it's the greatest thrill ride.
We love it so much. We kept riding it like this track and this track, and like, do you tell it like there's
what's the difference?
There's a third drop on this track, and there's only 2 drops on this track, or whatever.
Oh my gosh,
we love analyzing Space Mountain.
Yeah.
To throw the Ric Flair in there, it's the oldest ride in the park.
Longest line, baby, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, and then last favorite Disney question. Do you have a go-to meal when you're in the park, or a go-to food item or snack?
Yeah, turkey leg with Cheetos.
That's right, you do.
I love the turkey leg and Cheetos. You get it, you sit your ass down, you wait for your place in the parade, like you claim your spot with your turkey leg and your Cheetos, and that's mine.
You also popped huge when I think they added in Magic Kingdom, kind of by the Hall of Presidents, this little like market they added where they kind of offer like healthier snacks. There's like waters and fruit and stuff like that. And she loves pickles.
I love pickles.
So they have the big pickles that in the little thing. And so like she's like, oh, they have pickles at Disney.
Funny story, if we have time, just because when we went to Disney in the fall, and we're masked up, absolutely, we're hand sanitizing, doing all good, but like I needed a minute to eat my pickle, and we're getting in line. But like the Haunted Mansion line was getting longer and longer and longer, and I was like, oh no. And so I was like, Matt, get in line, I'm gonna get a pickle. And I am the only person in line, and I'm social distanced, I'm fine, but everyone's staring at me eating the pickle in line, because who eats a pickle in line but me? And I'm like taking a bite and then putting my mask back on and chewing and taking a bite, because I felt super judged that I was eating a pickle in line. But it was worth it getting to have Haunted Mansion and a pickle, even though my mask smelled like pickle the rest of the day. But
absolutely.
Maybe not the worst smell if you like pickles, but if you're not the biggest pickle fan, I could see how that could get a little.
I guess so. But yeah. So, what's your favorite snack?
I feel like I'm not one of those people. Like I wasn't like I never had like a go-to like get the Mickey ear like ice cream or whatever. Like no, I wasn't a big. I will say, and maybe this will be another segue, but like the biggest thing that popped me one time when we went to Disneyland in California at the hotel bar in Disney. So I'm a big bourbon and whiskey fan.
Yes.
I had heard from a friend that Disney has their own single barrel selection of Knob Creek. And again, it was another like worlds colliding, like, because I love single barrel store picks of certain whiskeys and stuff like that, Knob Creek being one of them. And so I was like, there's a Disney Select Knob Creek. And I'm like, that was the first thing. I'm like, we're going to the bar. Throw your bags in the thing. We're going down. We're going to have a drink first thing once we get in the hotel. And we did. So like, it's not really a Disney snack, but I kind of exploded as a fan when I saw like, Disney Select whiskey.
Whiskey nerd.
How did the whiskey compare to other whiskeys you've had?
So it was good. So like, that's the whole thing. And this is not a tangent we'll get into, but when you do single barrel selections, you can do them for stores or restaurants or bars or whatever. Instead of just having the standard offering on the shelf, they get to pick their own barrel. And whiskey barrels are notoriously different on a barrel by barrel basis. So one can taste totally different than the other. And it's when you blend them and you mix them and you get the consistent profile that they start to taste the same. But individual barrels can be vastly different. And so it always interests me. And so this one was pretty good compared to some of the best ones that I've had in my personal collection. So I was very pleased.
Always a good thing. And I guess that does provide a really good natural segue here. Matt, one of your projects you've been working on kind of in the last year or so is the Wrestling with Whiskey podcast. For those who are listening who, are over 21, do you want to give a quick like elevator speech, some synopsis of Wrestling with Whiskey and kind of what you're doing over there?
Sure. I mean, it was just started as basically my journey into kind of whiskey fandom. It was something I discovered kind of later in life. It was kind of the first thing really outside of wrestling that I became really like geeky and passionate about. And like, it came on fast. And I filmed a lot of little tastings and my journey into it. And now I run a live show every week on YouTube where, sometimes we review things. I've met a lot of friends in the whiskey industry, so I'll sometimes talk to them. And it's just, I like to think of it as a great way, a very non-pretentious way, which sometimes when you're getting into like food and spirits is hard to come by. People are when they know their stuff, they know their stuff. And I try to keep it very casual, and it's all about learning and just exploring something new. So whiskey fans, check out Wrestling with Whiskey on YouTube.
And then I can't do a podcast with people who were in the professional wrestling business without asking some professional wrestling questions. And Shaul, I know obviously you were, I don't want to use the phrase born into the business, but you were a third generation Guerrero.
Yes.
Was it when you were kind of looking that direction, I mean, was it kind of destined that you would become a wrestler or work in the professional wrestling business?
Like being a third generation Guerrero, and like you're right with saying I was born into it, like it's always just been something I've known. But I would say like not necessarily. I feel like my mom and dad wanted me to not be a wrestler just because they knew how hard the business was, and not only on your mind and your body, but just with politics and just there's a lot that goes into it. You spend more time on the road than you do with your family. And so, like not necessarily, but I mean, I feel like when we're in a place now where women are able to go just as hard as the guys and be able to have those kind of opportunities because I'm a Guerrero to see what I got in the ring. Like, I think it would have been an injustice for me to not try it. And I'm very, very happy with my journey that I've been able to be in wrestling a little bit and also continue my career as a professional dancer and get to do all of that. And I got to meet my husband through it. So I feel very blessed by the opportunities it's afforded me and that it's still in my life.
That's awesome. And for those, obviously, this is an audio podcast. When Shaul said she got to meet her husband, Matt had a big grin on his face with 2 thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Big thumbs up.
Perks of membership.
Matt, obviously, I know you went to college and you had a big background in theater and the arts and drama. And you studied, I read on Wikipedia, stage fighting or stage combat.
Yeah, stage combat, fight choreography.
How did you get? I mean, was it just a natural progression there into professional wrestling?
So I chose, honestly, the reason I went to study theater and acting in college was because I knew I wanted to be a wrestler as a kid, like, and it was something I wanted to do, and so my friend had got me into acting in high school. And I really like that too. But I was like, of course, I always had in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, I know wrestling is a performance. If I become a better actor and performer, it's only going to help me if and when I'm able to get there. So I went there with that in mind. And so then when I saw that they had a stage combat program, I was just like, that seemed like a natural fit to go be like wrestling fan. Well, I'm going to learn how to wrestle at some point anyway. If I can have other versions of choreography and how to take a hit or take a fall or whatever. And swords are cool. I'm still a little fantasy nerd at heart, so sword fighting is cool. And it was, and I had amazing teachers, David Woolley and John McFarland, both fight masters, who were really, really great mentors and great instructors, and eventually even became a teaching assistant in that program. So all kinds of versions of it. And then it's like, it's weird because like I kind of, you're not supposed to do this, but I kind of taught myself some wrestling stuff, in my backyard at home, whatever. And I kind of brought that to the stage combat program. And I was like, here's a little bit what we can do. I think that's kind of like wrestling that would make this scene, blah, blah, blah. And actually my mentor, my instructor, David Woolley, right out of college, there was a play called The Elaborate Entrance of Chad Deity, which is a small play by a playwright named Christopher Diaz that takes place within the world of professional wrestling. He's the author is a big wrestling fan growing up, but he kind of tells this whole story about kind of like politics and race and culture, but just in the microcosm of basically like a fake WWE like world, right? Mm-hmm. And my teacher knows everything there is to know about sword fighting and tricks and throwing things and catching them. And he does not know professional wrestling. So he goes, we need to do power bombs and super kicks. Can you help us out? So he brought me on as his assistant fight director. And so that was kind of I got to do that. And then I finally moved down to Florida and trained to actually finally get proper training in pro wrestling.
Got it. And this might get a little too philosophical for a theme park wrestling or a theme park podcast with two people in professional wrestling. But I know in the theme park fandom, there's actually a lot of crossover between theme park fandom and professional wrestling fandom. Do you think it's that, suspension of disbelief or temporary suspension of disbelief rather that, kind of makes the two a good, marriage for one another?
I would say so. I think it's the suspension of reality that gets us really excited. And I mean, when you're in a theme park and also when you're wrestling, you get to be who you want to be in those worlds. And like when you're on a coaster, you feel invincible. When you're on the Hulk, you feel like the Hulk, and like you're zipping through stuff and you have the music in your ears and you feel like you're in the movies, and I feel like for me, that's the same love I have for wrestling or performing. It's because I'm actually being this badass I always wanted to be, this own superhero or villain. And me, I think you're talking to a couple of heels here mostly, but like we get to be that. And I think I completely understand where that crossover happens, especially within the Disney and Universal theme parks, where or even like when you're on the Batman coaster, like you're supposed to feel like that superhero.
And I mean, I'll take it even further, kind of like even just from a practical like fan standpoint, mm-hmm. it's an interesting parallel, like you say, because I think it's so many forms of entertainment, especially today, they're on our screen, mm-hmm. the movie screen, the television screen, the computer screen, and they're awesome. So we're watching our favorite actors or whatever tell these stories in the big screen, but you're not there. Then on the flip side, we have things like sports. So you go to the stadium and everything, and it's cool because you're with all these people. It's real, right? Or I'm not going to use the word real, but it's legitimate. It's just a competition, right? It's mm-hmm. not about storytelling per se. It's just about wins and losses. And there's this interesting crossover. That's why we call it sports entertainment. But like you're in that live like sports setting. You're with all these other people, immersion. But then what's in front of you is a performance, like anything else. And so I think the crossover there is like when you're a fan going into a theme park, into like a Disney World, you are walking into with hundreds of other people and immersing in this kind of fantasy world, but you're in a huge group of people. WWE and wrestling is kind of like that. You're in this kind of huge arena with tons of other people, but you're experiencing this like live in-person fantasy show. You know what I mean? So like it's this middle ground between the entertainment we see in our TV, the sports we see over here. It is that kind of immersion into something fantastical, but it's right there in front of you. You can almost touch it.
Yes.
So both of those, I think, both in wrestling and theme parks, I think is kind of the crossover for me.
I love it. And, again, on the subject of professional wrestling, obviously I know the independent wrestling circuit right now is relatively non-existent due to COVID and safety protocols. And Matt, I don't want to set the dirt sheets on fire. Do we have any future plans right now? Or are you just very excited to continue talking whiskey and Twitch streaming and coming on really good roller coaster podcast?
Yes, please. More of those. Absolutely. Yeah, man, it's like, I tell people 2021 is very like 2020 was crazy, obviously, just with everything that happened for everybody. But 2021 is very much like what, let's see. You know what I mean? Like I'm open to any opportunity. Like I can't take the wrestler out of wrestling forever. It never happens. But to say it like is the number one thing in my mind of it, I think is probably not true. I love the digital content creation world. I love expanding the wrestling with whiskey thing. I want to see where all that goes. Even like into the gaming thing. Like I got commentary experience in WWE. And so maybe bringing that to something like esports, maybe, which is a huge growing category as well. But all the while, never saying no to a great wrestling opportunity. And I think that world will always be a part of me. So this year is gonna be a lot of cool discoveries, I think.
I love it. Well, I tell you what, I've taken up enough of both of your time this evening. Is there anything else either of you want to plug at this point?
Well, in addition to following me on Twitch and Instagram at Shaul Guerrero, definitely follow the Vaudettes. That is the rock and roll dance troupe that I am a part of. We were actually on Chris Jericho's Rock and Wrestling Rager last year, and we will be back this year. So make sure you follow the Vaudettes. We're actually dropping something really, really cool and wrestling related on Valentine's Day. So definitely check out the Vaudettes on Instagram and come take a class with us. Come just see us perform. It's super fun. And yeah, just follow my Instagram because that's where I post all my Twitch schedules and all my wrestling dates and anything else I happen to do.
Love it.
And yeah, for me, pretty much, it's simple to break it down. You look up either Wrestling with Whiskey or Drama King Matt on virtually any social platform. You will find me. I'm primarily doing Twitch and YouTube with the Drama King kind of brand. And then Wrestling with Whiskey is kind of YouTube and Instagram. And so, again, look at all those places for those two brands and you will find me.
Perfect. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. Thank you to Matt. Thank you to Shaul for your time. We really appreciate it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, hate mail, fan mail, shoot us an email. We're at podcast@coaster101.com. Much like Matt's social media being Drama King Matt, we are at Coaster101 pretty much anywhere you can consume social media. Thanks, as always, to Justin Mabry of JM Music Designs for our theme music. And that'll do it for this week, and we will talk to you guys soon. See ya.